Do the 49ers, do you think, want a quarterback competition between Purdy and or between, Lance and Darnold, and do they want one between Lance and Purdy, or do they want to they seem like they've made an evaluation that Brock is their guy based on what they've seen, and it seems like nobody asked them if they want. I think that was the question that was begging to be asked to John or Kyle that I would have loved to hear the answer to. Do you want a competition at quarterback, or do you want to make Brock Purdy your starter?
Yeah, so I would almost answer that with another question, Larry. And this is kind of what I've been wondering since Darnold was signed and since we got the leader in the clubhouse comments from John Lynch. What exactly can Trey Lance or Sam Darnold do in OTAs in, May and mini camp in June and training camp in August that's going to move the 49ers brass to a point where it's going to supersede what Brock Purdy did in December and January with the division on the line, on the road in Seattle, playing a really tough opponent in Dallas, finding a way to win that game? Like, what exactly are these guys supposed to do while they're, out there working out in shorts and a t-shirt that's going to overcome what they saw from Brock Purdy at the highest level that's given them this belief in him? And that's kind of where it's like, I'm kind of like trying to find that answer myself, Larry, where I'm like, Trey Lance could go out and he could be really accurate in camp. He could be very decisive with his reads. He could look really good. But it feels like no matter what he does or whatever Sam Darnold does, if Purdy's healthy, what he did down the stretch of last season is going to hold more weight than whatever these other two guys do. So I feel like we can't even call it a competition at that point because it feels like it's a 100-meter relay and they're giving Brock Purdy a 50-meter head start. So it's like whatever these guys end up doing, I don't see how it's going to be able to move them to get past the conviction they have in Purdy that's so clearly evident right now.
Like if you ask me, do the Niners want a quarterback competition between Brock and Trey? I would say no. And if you asked me, do you think that they want to commit to Brock and maybe move Trey to a team that would allow him to play right away, that probably was in the AFC, I'd say yes. And now you got the Texans sitting there with no quarterback, maybe going to pass on the top quarterbacks with D'Amico and Peters and Slowick. To me, it just sets up that the Texans may make a big play for Lance, and it'll be a smart play on their behalf to do so, especially since they don't really have a quarterback, and if they don't have a real conviction, I'd much rather invest a second-round pick in Trey Lance than a top 5 pick in a speculative quarterback class if you don't just totally love the player. So that's really interesting. The other part of this that makes things kind of interesting is Kyle Shanahan suggested that he may take 2 quarterbacks. He said that in Arizona. Well, they currently have 3. And now they're also, according to reports, had multiple pre-draft workouts with UCLA's Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the man everybody kind of knows affectionately as DTR, who's a good prospect in his own right. Bishop Gorman High School. This guy's he's played a lot of football. 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Played 5 years at UCLA. What do you make of their interest in DTR?
I love it. I'm a big DTR guy. I've watched him for the last few years, big Pac-12 guy, a lot of Pac-12 after dark games where I feel like a lot of people on the East Coast don't get to see those games and they haven't gotten to see what DTR has been able to do. And I just think that it's good to do due diligence every year. I know they throw that word around a ton, but it's good to do due diligence on quarterbacks every year, especially given the turnover they've had. But, for whatever it's worth, I had the chance to speak with DTR in Indy. And when I asked him about the 49ers, they had met at the East-West Shrine Bowl in Vegas. And, for whatever you want to read into, body language, whatever, he perked up a little bit. He had a big smile on his face when he was talking about the 49ers, talked about the interest they had in him and how much they liked him and he liked them. And it's hard to fault the guy. You look at what Kyle Shanahan's done with some quarterbacks who haven't really had success elsewhere and how much he sets up players at that position for success. Who wouldn't want to come play for them? So I definitely think there's something to it. They had Tanner McKee and Jake Haener and a quarterback from Houston. I apologize. I'm blanking on his name. It wasn't Clayton Tune. It was another quarterback.
Agbago or something like that?
Yeah. I apologize for not remembering the name. And, you know, they were looking pretty intently. Kyle, John, you know, Adam Peters, they were all out there watching those guys throw. So I think they're just at a point now where it's like maybe they saw the value in getting a guy that has, you know, the experience and has the smarts, that maybe doesn't have the physical traits that are going to jump out, that are going to leapfrog him to, you know, the first round. But I think Kyle knows deep down, and has for some time, that his system is doing a lot of the legwork. And I think that's why they've made a lot of the moves they made at quarterback, and why they felt so comfortable making Jimmy the guy, because he knows that these guys aren't going to be counted on to make 15, 20 plays a game where they're putting this offense on their back. They might have to do that a handful of times, but the scheme's going to take care of so much that I almost wonder if they're just getting to this model of roster building where they're like, hey, we'll invest, you know, big money into the D line. We'll invest big money into the skill position guys. We paid Debo. We paid Fred Warner a ton of money. He's this transcendent talent. Maybe we can get by just cycling through dependable rookies on rookie contracts at the quarterback position. Whether or not that's a feasible model to carry out over the course of 5 to 10 years, that remains to be seen. But I think the success that they had with Brock Purdy changed their mind on how they're evaluating that process going forward. And I think they saw an avenue where we don't have to lose all the talent we've accumulated. We just need to find a guy that can execute the offense and just kind of pilot this, you know, juggernaut of an offense that we've amassed with all the players we've had to pay at other positions.
DTR in the mocks that I'm looking at is listed at pick number 130. The Niners picked 99, 101, 102. Those 3 picks in the third round. Are they going quarterback in the third round? You know, I mean, first of all, if they go quarterback in the third round, they will have already traded Trey Lance, right? I mean, there's no question about that. There's no way they're going to have Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, and go quarterback in the third round, right?
Yeah, that would be kind of inexcusable at that point, right? Because there's no way you're going to roster 4. And I mean, unless they're comfortable kind of doing what they did with Nate Sudfeld with Sam Darnold, where they're like, hey, we'll bring him in. If it doesn't work out, we'll just cut him and eat the guaranteed money we, you know, had agreed to. Yeah, I just don't see any way where you could justify caring for, even after the, you know, shell shock that remains going to a 4th quarterback in an NFC Championship game. There's no way to justify that. That was just a horrible, unfortunate string of bad luck that you'd like to think won't replicate itself anytime soon. I do think, though, that with those 3 picks, there might be a team that wants to move up, or maybe they could move back to 120, 125, 130. Maybe they take him there. But if they're spending a day, you know, early day 3 or a late day 2 pick on a quarterback, it would have to be there has to be somebody that's the odd man out who's there among the current 3 right now.
You know,